Husband overhears wife mocking him on the phone. But his response was an unexpected revenge. David Mitchell had come home early from work on that rainy Thursday afternoon, something that rarely happened during his 15 years as an accountant at an office in downtown New York City. The traffic was lighter than usual, and he decided to surprise Jennifer with flowers and her favorite dessert that he had bought at the corner bakery. That's when he heard the laughter coming from the backyard. Jennifer was on the phone, and her words cut through the air like sharp razors. "He's so pathetic, Ashley. He believes everything I say." She laughed loudly, unaware that her husband was standing at the kitchen door, holding the bouquet of daisies he had so carefully chosen. "Yesterday he brought me chocolate because I said I was sad. The poor guy doesn't even suspect I use his credit card to buy gifts for you." David felt the world spin. 15 years of marriage. 15 years believing he had built something solid with the woman who was now mocking him like he was a clown. He hid behind the kitchen curtain, his heart beating so loud he was sure she would hear it. "And the worst is when he tries to be romantic," Jennifer continued, adjusting her dark hair as she walked through the small garden of their Upper East Side home. "Last week he made a candlelit dinner. I pretended to have a headache so I wouldn't have to endure his little kisses." How disgusting, Ashley. A 42-year-old man trying to be a heartthrob. David swallowed hard. 42 years old. Is that how she saw his age? As something repulsive? He always took care of himself, went to the gym 3 times a week, kept his hair well groomed. But to her, apparently, he was just a ridiculous old man. "Oh, and there's more," Jennifer went on, sitting on the little bench that David had assembled for her last weekend. "He's planning a trip for our 15th anniversary. 15 years, Ashley, as if it was something to celebrate. I'll make up that my mother is sick and I can't travel." David's hands trembled. He had been saving for months for that trip. He had researched hotels, read reviews, even learned a few words in English to impress her in Hawaii, all while she was planning to sabotage yet another of his gestures of love. David went up the stairs quietly and locked himself in the bedroom. When Jennifer came in 20 minutes later, he pretended to be asleep. "David," she whispered, "you're home early today?" "Just got in," he lied, keeping his eyes closed. "How was your day?" "Quiet, honey. I chatted a bit with Ashley in the garden. I have a terrible headache. I think I'll take some medicine and rest." David watched his wife perform her charade with a naturalness that frightened him. How could she lie so easily? How many other times had she done this? That night David couldn't sleep. Every word Jennifer had said echoed in his mind. He got up several times to watch her sleeping, trying to understand how a person could be so false. In the morning, when she woke up with her usual smile and gave him a kiss on the cheek, he almost vomited. "Good morning, my love," she said, smoothing the pink nightgown that David had bought for her the previous month. "Did you sleep well?" "Perfectly," he replied, watching every micro-expression on her face. How had he never noticed that coldness behind her brown eyes? During the following weeks, David began to pay attention to details that had previously gone unnoticed. Jennifer always had a headache when he suggested intimacy. She always found excuses not to watch the movies he chose. She always changed the subject when he talked about their future. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, David decided he needed to understand who Jennifer was really talking to on the phone. Ashley was her best friend since college, that much he knew. But did Ashley know that Jennifer was cheating not just physically, but emotionally, making fun of her own husband? One Saturday afternoon, David pretended he was going to the market and watched from his neighbor's window, who was a friend of his. Jennifer went out into the garden again, phone in hand. "Ashley, you won't believe what he did today," she began, and David felt his stomach turn in anticipation. The idiot woke up early to make a special breakfast. Pancakes. Who makes pancakes at 42? He's like a child. David remembered how he had gotten up at 6 in the morning to surprise her, how he had looked up the recipe online, how he had burned the first 2 pancakes before getting it right. "And you want to know something funny?" Jennifer continued. "He's saving up for a trip, counting every penny, the miser," Meanwhile, I spend whatever I want on his card. Yesterday I bought that purse you admired, remember? $300. He doesn't suspect a thing. David clenched his fists. $300 that he had saved by skipping lunch at work for 2 weeks. $300 that Jennifer had spent on a purse to impress her friend, while saying they needed to save to renovate the bathroom. The worst part is he's been getting needy lately, Jennifer went on, walking among the plants that David tended to every weekend. Keeps asking me if I love him, if I'm happy. Of course I say yes, right? I'm not going to complicate my life. But between you and me, Ashley, I feel trapped. 15 years with the same man, the same bad jokes, the same annoying habits. David felt a physical pain in his chest. Bad jokes? Annoying habits? He tried so hard to please Jennifer, to make her smile. When he told stories from work or made little jokes, it was always with the thought of seeing her happy. Oh, and he's planning another one of those romantic nights, Jennifer said, making a disgusted sound. Candles, music, cheap wine. So tacky. I'll have to make up some excuse to get out of it. Maybe I'll say my sister is having problems. Jennifer's sister, Sarah. David had always had a special fondness for her, and Sarah always seemed to like him too. Did she know that Jennifer used her name to avoid intimate moments in their marriage? David returned home before Jennifer finished the call. When she came in, he was in the living room, flipping through a magazine. "Hi, honey," she said, giving him a little kiss on the cheek. "How was the market?" "Oh, I forgot to go," David replied, testing her. "I was chatting with Mr. Thompson on the corner." "That's nice," she said, showing no real interest. "I'm going to take a shower." As he listened to the shower running, David realized that Jennifer hadn't even questioned why he didn't bring anything back from the market, nor shown any curiosity about what he had talked about with the neighbor. She simply didn't care about the details of his life. On Monday, David decided to run a test. He called home during lunch hour, something he rarely did. "Hi, my love," he said when Jennifer answered. "How are you?" "Fine," she replied, but David could hear voices in the background. "Why are you calling?" "Just wanted to see how you are. You sound different. Are there other people there?" "No, of course not," Jennifer lied. "I was just watching television. Are you okay? You never call at this time." "I'm great, I love you." "Love you too, bye." David hung up and leaned back in his office chair. Jennifer had lied about the voices, had shown irritation with his call, and had said "me too" instead of "I love you." Small details that took on enormous proportions when the truth was known. During the rest of the week, David observed Jennifer with new eyes. He noticed how she always checked her phone when she thought he wasn't looking, how she always had an excuse ready when he suggested doing something together, how she lied about small things unnecessarily, as if lying was more natural than telling the truth. On Friday, David came home and found Jennifer dressed differently. She was wearing the new blouse he had complimented in the store, but which she said was too expensive. "You bought the blouse," he observed. "Oh, yes," Jennifer replied, without looking at him. "It was on sale, very cheap." David had checked the price online, $250. Not cheap for the budget they were supposedly following. "Are you going out?" he asked. "I'm meeting Ashley for coffee. A quick thing. Can I come along?" "No," she answered too quickly, then softened her tone. "I mean, it's a girl thing, you know. We're going to talk about her personal problems." David nodded, but decided to follow her. He waited 15 minutes and left in the car, keeping his distance. Jennifer did not meet Ashley. She went to the mall, where she spent 3 hours walking alone, trying on clothes and drinking coffee at an expensive place. When she got home, David was watching television. "How was coffee with Ashley?" he asked. "Oh, it was good," Jennifer replied, taking off her shoes. "She's having some marriage problems. She needed to vent." Another lie. David wondered how many others there had been during a single week. On Saturday, while Jennifer was showering, David decided to look at the credit card statements more carefully. What he found left him speechless. In the last 3 months, Jennifer had spent almost $5,000 on things she had never mentioned. Clothes, cosmetics, lunches at expensive restaurants, even a trip to the spa. $5,000 that David had saved by working overtime, cutting personal expenses, foregoing things he wanted. $5,000 spent in secret, while Jennifer complained that they needed to save for their honeymoon trip. David printed all the statements and kept them in a folder. He didn't yet know what he would do with that information, but he felt he needed concrete proof of what he was discovering. The following week, David decided to test one more theory. He told Jennifer that he had received a bonus at work and suggested they go out to dinner to celebrate. "How wonderful," she exclaimed, and David noticed how her eyes sparkled in a way he hadn't seen in a long time. "Where are we going?" "I thought of that Italian restaurant you've always wanted to try." "The one that's a bit expensive?" "Yes. Today we can afford it." "Perfect. I'll get ready." David watched as Jennifer became genuinely excited for the first time in months, not because she was with him, but because of the prospect of spending money at a sophisticated place. During dinner, Jennifer was radiant. She took several photos of the food and the ambiance, posted them on social media, and talked animatedly about the dishes. David realized that she was more alive in those 2 hours than she had been at home for entire weeks. "You seem different today," he commented. "Different how?" "More happy, more excited." "It's just nice to go out like this," she said, stirring her wine. "We needed this." "Needed what, exactly?" "To do different things, you know? Break the routine." David nodded, but a suspicion grew in his mind. Jennifer wasn't happy to be with him. She was happy to be in an expensive, sophisticated environment that she could show off to others. When they got home, Jennifer was excited and affectionate in a way David hadn't seen in months. But he could no longer feel good about that attention, knowing it only existed because he had spent money. On Sunday, while Jennifer slept in, David went out for a walk to think. He walked through the neighborhood where they had met 15 years earlier, passed by the diner where they had their first date, by the little park where he had asked her to be his girlfriend. How had everything gone wrong? When had Jennifer stopped loving him and started seeing him only as a provider? Or had she always been like that, and he was just too in love to notice? David remembered the first years of marriage. Jennifer had always liked beautiful things, had always been vain, had always wanted a better standard of living. He had interpreted that as ambition, as an incentive for him to grow professionally. But now he wondered if she had married him for his financial potential, not for love. When he returned home, Jennifer was in the kitchen preparing lunch. She wore a simple dress, was without makeup, and for a moment David remembered the woman he had fallen in love with. "Where did you go?" she asked without looking at him. "Just went for a walk." "Oh." They ate lunch in silence. David watched Jennifer, trying to find some sign of the woman he had loved, but all he saw now was a stranger who shared his home and his bed, who knew his secrets and routines, but who felt nothing real for him. "Jennifer," he said suddenly. "Hmm? Are you happy?" She stopped chewing and looked at him in surprise. "Happy how?" "With us. With our marriage." "What a strange question, David. Of course I'm happy." "Are you sure?" "Why are you asking this?" David studied her face. There was irritation there, not concern or affection, as if he were bothering her with difficult questions. "I just wanted to make sure we're okay." "We're great," she said, going back to eating. "Don't go creating problems where there aren't any." Problems where there aren't any. David almost laughed at the irony. That night, David pretended to be asleep when Jennifer took a call in the bathroom. He approached the door and managed to hear fragments of the conversation. "Can't stand his questions anymore. He's getting clingy. Of course I'll stay married. I'm not crazy enough to give up this life. But it's hard to pretend I like it." David went back to bed with a racing heart. So that was it. Jennifer was pretending, deliberately deceiving him every day, maintaining a marriage she considered a farce, just for the financial benefits. On Tuesday, David made a decision. He called Ashley. "David," she answered with surprise. "Is everything okay? Is Jennifer okay?" "She is. I wanted to talk to you about something. Can we meet for coffee?" "Of course. Is it about your wedding anniversary?" Wedding anniversary. David had completely forgotten. 15 years the following week. "Something like that," he said. "Can it be today?" They met at a diner downtown. Ashley arrived on time, smiling and greeting David affectionately. She had always been kind to him, unlike other friends of Jennifer's who treated him with indifference. "So," Ashley said, stirring her coffee, "what did you want to talk about?" David took a deep breath. He had rehearsed that conversation mentally several times, but still didn't know how to start. "Ashley, you know Jennifer well." "Since college. Why?" "Do you two talk about me?" Ashley seemed uncomfortable. "What do you mean?" "When you talk on the phone, do you comment about me? About our marriage?" "David, where are you going with this?" "I just want to understand if there's something I should know. If Jennifer is dissatisfied with me in some way." Ashley stayed silent for a long moment, stirring her cup and avoiding his gaze. "David, Ashley, please, be honest with me. You're going to get angry." David's heart raced. "I won't. I just need the truth." Ashley took a deep breath. "Jennifer, she does complain about you, yes. But I always tell her that's normal in long marriages, that everyone goes through rough patches." "What kind of complaints?" "She says you're too straight-laced, too predictable, that she feels bored." David nodded, trying to seem calm despite the knot in his stomach. "Anything else?" "David, I don't think it's right for me to be saying this. You two should talk between yourselves." "Ashley, I need to understand what's happening in my marriage, please." Ashley looked around, as if about to confess a crime. She talks about money, says you're too controlling with spending, that she feels like she has to ask permission for everything." David almost laughed. "Controlling? Him, who didn't even know about the $5,000 in hidden expenses. And what do you think about these complaints?" "I think Jennifer is going through a difficult phase. She married very young, never had the chance to experience other things. Sometimes I get the impression that she regrets it." "Regrets marrying me?" "No," Ashley said quickly. "Regrets getting married so young, it's different." David nodded, but knew Ashley was trying to soften the reality. "Thank you for being honest," he said. "David, you won't tell her we talked, will you? She'd be furious with me." "I won't say anything." When they left the diner, Ashley touched David's arm. "David, you're a good man. Jennifer knows that. You just need to talk more, understand each other better." David smiled sadly. If Ashley knew what he had heard. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. That night, David came home determined to confront Jennifer. But when he entered the living room, she was sitting on the sofa, crying. "Jennifer, what happened?" "My mom called," she said between sobs. "Grandma Betty is in the hospital." Jennifer's grandmother was a 90-year-old lady whom David adored. Whenever they visited her, the elderly woman made sure to praise David and say how lucky Jennifer was to have found such a good man. "What's wrong with her?" "The doctors don't know yet. She fainted at home, and the neighbor called the ambulance." David sat beside Jennifer and hugged her. For a moment he forgot all the discoveries of the week and only saw the woman he loved suffering. "Let's go to the hospital," he said. At the hospital, David watched Jennifer interact with the family. She was genuinely worried, genuinely caring with her grandmother. And when Mrs. Roberts saw David, her eyes lit up. "David, my dear, how handsome you look." "Hi, Grandma Betty. How are you feeling?" "Better now that you're here. Jennifer, you're so lucky with this husband." David saw Jennifer smile and agree, but noticed the smile didn't reach her eyes. They spent the night at the hospital. Mrs. Roberts was stable, but the doctors wanted to observe her for one more day. During the long hours of waiting, David and Jennifer talked little, but there were moments of closeness that David hadn't felt in months. "Thank you for coming," Jennifer said when they were heading home in the early hours. "Of course. Grandma Betty is special to me too." "I know. She adores you." "And I adore her." They drove in silence for a few minutes. "David," Jennifer said suddenly. "Do you think we'll grow old together like she and Grandpa George did?" David felt his heart tighten. Jennifer's grandfather had passed away 2 years earlier. after 60 years of marriage with Grandma Betty. "Would you like to?" he asked. "Of course," she replied, but David detected hesitation in her voice. When they arrived home, Jennifer went straight to the shower. David stayed in the living room thinking about her question. Did she really want to grow old with him? Or had she asked the question just because it was expected of her at that moment? During the following days, Mrs. Betty recovered well and was discharged. David noticed that during the family crisis, Jennifer had behaved more affectionately toward him, but he wondered if this was genuine or just a reaction to stress. On Thursday, David decided to run another test. He called Jennifer during the day and said an unexpected issue had come up at work and he would be home late. "That's fine," she said, and David detected relief in her voice. "I'll have dinner by myself anyway. Won't you miss me?" "Of course I will," she said, but her tone was mechanical. David hung up and decided to go home at his usual time. He wanted to see what Jennifer did when she thought he wouldn't be there. When he arrived home at 6 in the evening, David heard voices coming from the living room. He entered quietly through the back door and heard Jennifer talking animatedly with someone. "No," he said, "he'll be late today. I can finally relax a bit." David approached and saw that Jennifer was on a video call on the computer. On the screen, he recognized Ashley and another woman he didn't know. "Guys, you have no idea how exhausting it is to pretend everything is fine all the time," Jennifer continued. "Sometimes I just want to be alone without having to smile and pretend I'm interested in his little work stories." "But Jennifer," said Ashley, "haven't you talked about this? About you feeling suffocated?" "How can I talk? He's so sensitive. Anything I say, he immediately looks like a sad puppy. It's easier to pretend everything is okay." David felt a dull anger growing in his chest. A sad puppy. Was that how she saw his sensitivity? "And your anniversary is coming up," said the other woman. 15 years. "Don't remind me," Jennifer sighed. "He's already planning something special. He'll probably spend money we don't have on some romantic nonsense." David had been saving for months to buy a ring Jennifer had admired in a store window 6 months earlier. He thought she had forgotten, but he had been saving penny by penny to surprise her. "Jennifer, you have to decide what you want from life," said Ashley. "It's not fair to him or to you to continue like this." I know, but it's complicated. He's a good man, Ashley. He truly loves me, takes good care of me. I've never wanted for anything. How can I throw that away?" "But don't you love him?" David held his breath, waiting for the answer. I like him, a lot. But love? That whole passion? I don't know if I've felt that for a long time." David closed his eyes. Hearing that was worse than all the previous mockery. "So you're friends who share a house," said the other woman. "Pretty much," Jennifer agreed. "He's like an older brother who takes care of me. Except brothers don't want to kiss on the mouth." The three laughed, and David felt like vomiting. "But so? What are you going to do?" asked Ashley. "For now, nothing. My life is comfortable. He's affectionate. I don't lack for anything material. Why complicate things?" David couldn't bear to hear more. He left the house quietly and drove aimlessly for an hour, trying to process what he had just discovered. So that was it. Jennifer didn't love him, but she was too comfortable to end the marriage. She saw him as a provider, a caretaker, someone who made her life easier. The love, the passion, the real connection he felt for her, all of that was one-sided. When David returned home at 10 at night, Jennifer was watching television. "Hi, honey," she said, giving him a little kiss on the cheek. "How was work?" "Tiring," he replied, noticing how she perfectly played the part of the concerned wife. "Poor thing. Do you want me to warm up dinner?" "No need, I already ate." "Oh, okay. I'm going to the bedroom then. I'm dead tired." David stayed in the living room until late, thinking about what to do. Part of him wanted to confront Jennifer immediately, to shout out all the truth he had discovered. But another part, the part that still loved her, wanted to understand if there was any possibility of saving the marriage. On Friday, David made a drastic decision. He took the day off and followed Jennifer when she left the house. First, she went to the supermarket. David watched her from a distance, noticing how she bought expensive items that never made it home. Imported chocolates, fancy wines, special cheeses. Then she went to the mall where she spent 2 hours trying on clothes and buying cosmetics. At 2 in the afternoon, Jennifer entered a fancy cafe at the mall and met up with a woman David didn't know. They greeted each other with cheek kisses and sat at a table near the window. David got a table at a safe distance and ordered a coffee, pretending to read a newspaper while trying to listen to the conversation. "So, how are things with David?" the other woman asked. "Same as always," Jennifer sighed. "He's still the most boring man on the planet." David felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. "Jennifer, you need to make a decision. You can't keep stringing him along forever." "I know, Megan, but it's not easy." "Have you thought about couples therapy?" "What for?" "So he can find out I don't feel anything for him anymore. It'll be worse." "Then just end it." "And live how?" "You know I never really worked. David has supported me for 15 years. Where will I live?" "Where will? With what money?" David swallowed hard, so it really was just about the money. "You could get a job," Megan suggested, "at 37 with no experience. Megan, be realistic. So you're going to stay married forever to a man you don't love just for money?" "It's not just for money," Jennifer defended herself. "He's a good person, treats me well, never hurt me. It's just that there's no spark anymore. I don't feel anything anymore." David got up and left the cafe before Jennifer could see him. He drove to a nearby park and sat on a bench, trying to sort out his thoughts. 15 years. 15 years of marriage that for him had been the best of his life. 15 years believing he was building something real, solid, lasting. And to discover that for Jennifer, it had just been a convenience. David thought about all the times he had worked overtime to give her a better life. All the times he had chosen to stay home with her instead of going out with friends. All the dreams he had built with her at the center. And she was pretending. Every day, every night, every "I love you," she said. It was all a lie. A performance to maintain the comfortable life he provided. David stayed in the park until dark, watching people pass by. Young couples holding hands, families with small children, elderly people walking together. Were all of them real? Or were there other people living lies like his? When he got home, Jennifer was in the kitchen preparing dinner. "Where were you?" she asked. "I got home and you weren't here." "I went out to take care of some things," he replied. "What things?" David watched her. She wasn't really interested in the answer. It was just small talk, a way to fill the silence. "Work things," he said. "Oh?" They ate dinner, watching television, like they did most nights. David watched Jennifer laugh at a comedy show and wondered if at least that laughter was real, or if she was pretending too. "David," she said during a commercial. "Our anniversary is next week." "I know. Do you want to do something special?" David studied her. There was something strange about the question, as if she were testing him somehow. "What would you like to do?" "I don't know, maybe just dinner at home. Nothing too over the top." Nothing too over the top. David had planned to surprise her with the ring, a weekend trip, dinner at the most expensive restaurant in the city. But now he realized Jennifer would probably be embarrassed by all that one-sided display of love. "Okay," he said. "Dinner at home. You're not upset?" "Why?" "I don't know. You seem different lately." David almost laughed. Different. If she only knew how different he was. "I'm just tired," he said. "From work?" "From a lot of things." On Saturday, David woke up with a strange feeling. It was as if he were watching his life from the outside, like a movie he was watching about someone else. Jennifer slept beside him, beautiful and serene, and he felt a mix of love and sadness that confused him. He still loved her. Even knowing everything, even knowing she didn't feel the same, he still loved her. And that made him feel pathetic, exactly as she had said. David got up and went to the kitchen to make coffee. It was something he had done every morning for 15 years, a small gesture of affection that Jennifer had never really appreciated. While he waited for the coffee to brew, David thought about the options he had. He could confront Jennifer with everything he knew, force her to admit the truth, and head for an inevitable separation. Or he could pretend he knew nothing and keep living that lie. Or he could do something different. David remembered a conversation he had had with a co-worker a few months before. Michael had separated from his wife after 20 years of marriage and, surprisingly, seemed happier than ever. "We spend so much time trying to save dead marriages that we forget to live," Michael had said. "When I finally admitted it wasn't working anymore, it was like I woke up after years of sleeping." At the time, David had felt sad for his friend's situation. Now he was beginning to understand what Michael had felt. Jennifer appeared in the kitchen wearing a silk nightgown that David had bought for her. "Good morning," she said, yawning. "Good morning. Want some coffee?" "Yes, thank you." They drank their coffee in silence. David watched Jennifer scroll through her phone while eating toast and wondered when was the last time they had really talked during breakfast. "I have to go out today," Jennifer said, without looking up from her phone. "Where?" "I'm helping Ashley pick out some things for her new apartment." David nodded. Another lie, probably. "What time will you be back?" "I don't know. Maybe tonight." After Jennifer left, David decided it was time to take action. But it wouldn't be the one she expected. He called Michael. "David, how's it going, man?" "Hi, Michael, do you have some time to talk?" "Sure. Want to come over to my place?" David drove to his friend's house, a modern apartment that Michael had rented after the separation. The place was small, but it had a different energy than David's house. It was the home of someone who was really living, not just existing. "So, what's going on?" Michael asked, handing him a beer. David told him everything. The conversations he had overheard, the lies, the discovery that Jennifer didn't love him anymore. Michael listened quietly, shaking his head from time to time. "Man," Michael said when David finished, "that's heavy." "I know. And now I don't know what to do." "What do you want to do?" "That's the question. Part of me still loves her and wants to try to save the marriage. But how do you save something that maybe never really existed?" "David, can I give you some advice?" "Of course." "Stop trying to save her and start saving yourself." David frowned. "What do you mean?" "You're so worried about keeping Jennifer happy that you forgot to ask if you're happy. And from what you've told me, you haven't been for a long time." David thought about that. It was true. For months he'd felt like he was walking on a tightrope, trying to please a woman who didn't want to be pleased, fighting for a love that wasn't returned. But what if it's just a phase? What if she's going through a tough time and— "David," Michael interrupted him. "She said she doesn't love you. She's not doubting her love. She's not confused. She clearly said she doesn't feel anything anymore, and that she's only staying married out of convenience." David sighed. "So you think I should end it?" "I think you should stop living for her and start living for yourself. What happens next?" "Will happen." David spent the rest of the afternoon at Michael's house, talking about life, relationships, and new beginnings. When he returned home in the late afternoon, he had a different perspective. Jennifer hadn't come back yet. David took the opportunity to look at her credit card expenses again and was even more shocked by the amounts. In 6 months, she had spent the equivalent of 3 months of his salary on personal things. David grabbed a calculator and did the math. If he weren't married, with the expenses he had on his own, he could live much more comfortably. He could even buy the apartment he'd always dreamed of, close to work. For the first time in weeks, David imagined himself living alone, waking up whenever he wanted, watching the movies he liked, eating what he felt like, not having to answer to anyone. The idea, instead of scaring him, began to seem liberating. When Jennifer got home at 10 at night, David was in the living room reading a book. "Hi," she said, looking tired. "How was your day?" "Quiet, and yours?" "Tiring. Ashley is so indecisive about choosing furniture." David nodded, not mentioning that Ashley had posted a picture on social media a few hours earlier of a company gathering at her workplace. "I'm going to take a shower," Jennifer said. While listening to the shower water, David made a decision. He wouldn't confront Jennifer yet. First, he would prepare himself. He would get his finances in order, think about what he really wanted for his life, and only then would he take definitive action. But one thing was clear. He couldn't keep living that lie any longer. The following week, David started acting differently. Not drastically. He didn't want to alarm Jennifer, but subtly. He stopped making breakfast every day. He stopped asking where she was going when she went out. He stopped suggesting doing things together. Jennifer noticed the changes, but seemed to interpret them as work stress. "Are you okay?" she asked on Wednesday. "You seem a bit distant." "I'm just thoughtful," he replied. "Thoughtful about what?" "About life. About the future." "What future?" David looked her in the eyes. "Our future, Jennifer. Where we'll be in 5 years. In 10 years. She looked away. "Why these existential questions?" "I don't know. Maybe it's my age. We're going to be married for 15 years tomorrow. It's natural to reflect." "Yeah," she said. But David noticed discomfort in her voice. That night, the eve of their anniversary, David lay awake for hours watching Jennifer sleep. She looked so young, so innocent while sleeping. It was hard to believe that the same person who mocked him with her friends was the one breathing softly beside him. David thought about waking her up and telling her everything, saying he knew about the conversations, the lies, her true feelings. But something held him back. Perhaps it was fear of confrontation, or perhaps it was the last hope that things could be different. On the morning of their wedding anniversary, David woke up to a work message, an emergency that required his immediate presence. He looked at Jennifer, still sleeping, and for a moment hesitated. It was their anniversary. He should stay. But then he remembered all the times she had made excuses not to celebrate important moments, all the convenient headaches, all the sudden appointments. David dressed quietly and left a note on the kitchen table. "Had to go handle a work emergency. Happy anniversary. Love you." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. At work, David did have a situation to handle, but one that would normally take 2 hours. He decided to prolong his absence. He wanted to see how Jennifer would react to being alone on their anniversary. At 11 in the morning, he got a message from her. "Hi, honey. Saw your note. Everything okay there? Kisses." David replied, "It's taking longer than I thought. Might not be back until tonight." Jennifer's response came quickly. "Okay, no problem. Take care." David stared at his phone. No problem. On their wedding anniversary, she had said no problem to him being out all day. At 2 in the afternoon, David called home. Jennifer answered on the 5th ring. "Hi, honey," she said, but David heard voices in the background. "Do you have company?" "No, it's just the television. How is it there?" "Complicated. I think I'll have to stay later." "Oh, that's a shame, but don't worry about me. I'll be fine." David hung up, puzzled. The voices in the background didn't sound like television. They sounded like real people talking. At 4 in the afternoon, David decided to go back home. When he got close to his street, he saw a car parked in front of his house that he didn't recognize. David parked a few houses down and walked to his house. The front door was closed, but he could hear laughter coming from the backyard. He went in through the side of the house and hid behind the laundry area. In the garden, Jennifer was sitting with 3 women David didn't know well, but knew were old college friends of hers. 15 years, one of them was saying. "Jennifer, you are a warrior." "A warrior why?" Jennifer asked, laughing. "For putting up with 15 years with the same man." They all laughed, and David felt his blood boil. "Guys, don't talk about David like that," Jennifer said, but her tone was amused, not defensive. "He's a good husband." "A good husband is different from an interesting husband," said another. "Have you never felt tempted to have an affair?" "Tempted, yes," Jennifer admitted, and David felt the world spin. "But I never did anything. David doesn't deserve that." "But do you regret getting married so young?" Jennifer was silent for a moment. "Sometimes," she finally said, "sometimes I look at you all, single, free to do what you want, and I feel envious." "But you can do what you want too," one of them said. "Can I? I have to account for everything. I have to be home for dinner. I have to pretend to be interested in his thing." "Pretend?" "You have no idea how exhausting it is to pretend you're interested when your husband tells the same boring work stories for the 1,000th time." David clenched his fists. Boring stories. He always tried to share the events of his day with her, believing she cared. "And in bed?" asked one of the women with a mischievous smile. "In bed, it's even worse," Jennifer sighed. 15 years doing the same things, the same way, in the same position. They all laughed loudly, and David had to control himself not to storm into the garden yelling. "Guys," Jennifer continued, "you have no idea what it's like. He's so predictable. Every Friday he suggests watching a movie. Every Saturday he wants to go to the market together. Every Sunday he makes that special breakfast he thinks makes me happy. And doesn't it? It does, but it's always the same thing. 15 years of the same routine, the same gestures, the same words. Sometimes I feel like screaming, 'Do something different.' Why don't you tell him that? How? He's so sensitive. If I say I'm bored, he'll be devastated. It's easier to pretend everything's fine." David felt a physical pain in his chest. So it wasn't just a lack of love. It was disgust. It was boredom. She was disgusted with the life they had built together. "Jennifer," said one of the friends, "you have to do something. You can't live like this forever." I know, but it's complicated. David loves me so much, how can I destroy that?" "You already have," said another. "You might be physically married to him, but mentally you checked out a long time ago." David couldn't bear to hear any more. He left the house quietly and drove to a nearby bar, where he ordered a shot of whiskey and tried to process what he had just heard. 15 years. 15 years of one-sided love. 15 years of being a clown for an audience that didn't care. David felt like the biggest fool in the world. He stayed at the bar until 9 at night, drinking and thinking. When he got home, the friend's car was already gone, and Jennifer was in the kitchen preparing dinner. "Hi, honey," she said with a radiant smile. "How was work?" David watched her play her part as the loving wife and felt a dull anger. "Tiring," he said. "Poor thing. Want to take a shower while I finish dinner? I made that dish you like." David nodded and went to the bedroom. In the shower he made a decision. Enough. 15 years was enough. He couldn't live that lie any longer. But David wouldn't confront Jennifer immediately. First, he would make her feel the same way he was feeling. He would make her realize what she was losing. During dinner, David was quiet, thoughtful. "Are you okay?" Jennifer asked. "You're very quiet." "Just thinking." "About what?" "About us." "Us how?" David looked her in the eyes. "Jennifer, are you happy?" "Of course I am." "Why do you ask that?" "Just wanted to be sure." "David, you're scaring me with these questions." "No need to be scared. It's just that today is our wedding anniversary, and I was thinking about how fast time has flown by. It really has. And I also thought about how we've changed." Jennifer seemed uncomfortable. "Changed how?" "I don't know. We were more close before. More connected. We're still close." "You think so?" "Of course. We live together, share everything, talk about everything." David almost laughed. Talk about everything. If she only knew that he knew about all the conversations she wasn't having with him. "Yeah," he said, "you're right." After dinner, David said he was tired and went to the bedroom. Jennifer stayed in the living room watching television. David pretended to be asleep when she came to bed, but he lay awake, planning his next steps. The next morning, David began to put his plan into action. First, he completely stopped all the little romantic gestures. He no longer brought flowers, no longer made special coffee, no longer suggested doing things together. At first, Jennifer didn't seem to notice. In fact, she seemed relieved. But David also started to become less available. When she would tell him something, he would listen politely, but without the enthusiastic interest from before. When she asked for his opinion on clothes or decorations, he gave generic answers. After a week, Jennifer started to notice. "You're different," she said on a Thursday. "Different how?" "More distant, less affectionate. I'm just tired." "Tired of what?" David looked at her with a neutral expression. "Of work, of the routine, of the same things every day." David saw a shadow of worry pass through Jennifer's eyes. "What same things?" "Nothing specific, just normal life." During the second week, David started going out more. He signed up for a more expensive gym, bought new clothes, started taking better care of his appearance. When Jennifer asked where he had been, he gave vague answers. "I went out to take care of some things," or "I met up with some colleagues from work." David also stopped sharing details of his life with her. When something interesting happened at work, he no longer told her. When he received calls, he answered in another room. Jennifer began to show curiosity and even jealousy. "Who called?" she asked one night when David answered the phone in the bedroom. "A colleague," he replied. "Which colleague?" "You don't know him." "How don't I know him? I know all your colleagues." "He's a new colleague." David lied deliberately, testing how she would react. To his surprise, Jennifer was clearly bothered. In the third week, David started coming home late without warning. When Jennifer asked where he had been, he gave evasive answers. "I had to stay late at the office," or "I stopped for a beer." One night he came home at 11 o'clock and found Jennifer waiting awake in the living room. "David, can we talk?" "Of course." "You've been different, very different, and I'm worried." David sat in the armchair, not on the sofa next to her as he always did. "Worried about what?" "About you. About us. You barely talk to me lately. You don't show affection. You're always distant." "And that bothers you?" "Of course it bothers me. You're my husband." David studied her face. There was real worry there, but he wondered if it was worry about him or about the security of the life she had built. "Jennifer, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Do you love me?" She seemed surprised by the direct question. "Of course I love you. How can you ask that?" "It's just, I don't know. Lately I feel like we're two strangers sharing a house." "David, that's nonsense. We're just going through a rough patch." "What kind of rough patch?" "I don't know. Maybe it's work stress, tiredness. Long marriages have their ups and downs." David nodded, but didn't seem convinced. "Maybe you're right." "I am. We just need to try harder to stay close." "How?" "I don't know. Maybe we could go away for a weekend. Or take that trip you wanted to take to celebrate our 15th anniversary." David noticed how Jennifer was now willing to take the trip she had sabotaged before. "I'm not sure it's a good idea to spend money right now," he said. "Why? We've always had money for these things." "Yeah, but I'm thinking about making some investments. Maybe it's better to save." "What investments?" "I'm thinking about buying an apartment to rent out as extra income." "What apartment? Where? Why didn't you tell me about this before?" David saw panic growing in Jennifer's eyes. The idea of him making investments meant less money available for her expenses. "I just started looking into it. Nothing's decided yet." "But David, we need to decide these things together. We're married." "You're right," he said, "but without real commitment. We'll keep talking about it." That night, David heard Jennifer taking a call in the bathroom. He approached the door and managed to hear fragments. "He's been very strange, Ashley. I don't know what to do. I'm afraid he's thinking about separation. I can't lose this life." David smiled bitterly. So now she was afraid of losing the comfortable life he provided. During the following weeks, David continued his distant behavior, but added another element. He began showing interest in other women. Not in a crude or obvious way, but subtly. When they went to the supermarket and the cashier flirted with him, David would return the smile. When a waitress was friendly at a restaurant, he made sure to compliment her in front of Jennifer. "What a friendly waitress," he commented one evening. "Friendly?" Jennifer asked with a hint of jealousy. "Yes, polite, attentive, helpful." David emphasized each word and saw Jennifer clearly becoming uncomfortable. David also began casually complimenting other women. "The new secretary at the office is very competent," he mentioned during dinner. "Oh, really? What is she like?" "Young, smart, dedicated. It's good to work with people like that." Jennifer quickly changed the subject, but David noticed she was paying attention to every word. One evening, while they were watching television, an actress David had always found beautiful appeared on screen. "Wow, what a beautiful woman," he remarked. "David," Jennifer exclaimed. "What? Can't I find someone beautiful?" "You can, but in front of me?" "Jennifer, I have eyes, and she really is beautiful." More beautiful than me. David looked at her with a thoughtful expression. They're different types of beauty, he finally said. Jennifer was visibly bothered by the ambiguous answer. The following month, David intensified his strategy. He started coming home with gifts that clearly weren't for Jennifer. "Who is that for?" she asked when he arrived with a box of expensive chocolates. "For Mrs. Roberts from the office. It's her birthday. Those are expensive chocolates for a co-worker. She's special. Always helps me with everything." David invented several imaginary Mrs. Roberts who received his attention and gifts, always describing them in a complimentary way in front of Jennifer. He also began taking better care of his appearance. He bought new clothes, changed his haircut, started wearing a different cologne. "What cologne is that?" Jennifer asked one morning. "Do you like it?" "It's different. The saleswoman said it's the trendy fragrance, that women love it." "What saleswoman?" "From the perfume store at the mall. A very nice young woman, by the way. She helped me choose." David could see the jealousy growing in Jennifer's eyes, but he also saw something else. She was starting to see him in a different light. During all those years, Jennifer had grown accustomed to having David available, predictable, devoted only to her. Now that he was becoming less available and showing interest in other people, she was rediscovering him. One evening, Jennifer did something she hadn't done in months. She dressed up especially for him. "You look nice," David commented when he saw her. "Thank you, I dressed up for you." "For me, why?" "Because I felt like it. Can't I dress up for my husband?" David smiled, but not with the enthusiasm she expected. "Of course you can." During dinner, Jennifer was more affectionate, more attentive to him. She asked about his day, laughed at his jokes, touched his hand several times. "David," she said at the end of the evening, I missed you. Missed me, but I'm here every day." "That's not it. I missed us, how we used to be before." David looked at her with renewed interest. "How we used to be before?" "Closer, more affectionate, more connected." "And what changed?" "I don't know. The routine, maybe. Time. But I want it to go back to how it was before." David pretended to consider her words. "I would like that too," he finally said. "But I don't know if it's possible." "Why not?" "Because I've changed, Jennifer. I'm not the same man I was 15 years ago, or 5 years ago, or even 6 months ago." "Changed how?" "I started valuing myself more, thinking about what I really want from life. And I realized I was accepting crumbs when I deserved so much more." Jennifer seemed startled by his words. "Crumbs of what?" "Of attention, of affection, of genuine interest. I spent years giving my best and receiving the minimum in return." "David, that's not true." "Isn't it? When was the last time you showed real interest in my life? When was the last time you started a conversation about our dreams, our plans? When was the last time you told me you loved me without me saying it first?" Jennifer fell silent, clearly uncomfortable. I do show interest." "Do you? How?" "I ask about your day. You ask, 'How was your day?' And when I start answering, you're on your phone or thinking about something else." "That's not true." "Isn't it? Then tell me, what was the most important project I worked on last month? What was the biggest challenge I faced at work in recent weeks? What was the last thing that made me truly happy?" Jennifer opened and closed her mouth several times, clearly without answers. "David, You don't know, do you? And you know why? Because you haven't truly listened to me for years. You pretend to listen, but you're always thinking about something else." David got up from the table. "I'm going to take a shower." That night, Jennifer tried to be more affectionate in bed, but David kept his distance, responding to her caresses politely but without enthusiasm. "David, don't you want to?" she asked, trying to be seductive. "I'm tired," he said, turning on his side. David heard Jennifer sigh in the dark and knew he had hit the mark. For the first time in 15 years, he had rejected her advances. In the following days, Jennifer started trying harder. She cooked special meals, bought the beer he liked, even suggested watching a movie he had mentioned months before. But David remained cordial yet distant. He thanked her for the gestures, but without the enthusiasm she expected. "David," she said one night, "aren't you happy with the things I've been doing?" "I am. It's nice that you're making an effort." "Then why do you keep your distance?" I'm not distant. I'm just different." "Different how?" "More cautious. More selective about where I put my emotional energy." "Selective? With me? With everyone, including myself?" David could see the frustration growing in Jennifer's eyes. She was used to having emotional control over him, and now that control was slipping away. A week later, David decided to take the next step. He started going out alone on weekends. "Where are you going?" Jennifer asked when he got ready on a Saturday morning. "I'm meeting some friends." "What friends?" "People from work." "Can I come along?" "No, it's a guy's thing. We'll talk about football and work. You'd be bored." David left and stayed out all day, and actually he went to the movies alone, had lunch at a restaurant he'd always wanted to try, and spent the afternoon at a bookstore. For the first time in years, he did exactly what he felt like doing. When he returned that night, Jennifer was anxious. "How was it?" "Really good. I had a great time." "Where did you go?" "Various places. We talked a lot." "About what?" "Life, relationships, personal projects." David saw Jennifer grow even more anxious with his vague answers. On the following weekends, David repeated the pattern. He went out alone, always making up meetings with imaginary friends, and returned home looking satisfied and refreshed. Jennifer began questioning him more intensely. "David, tell me the truth. Are you seeing someone?" "Seeing how?" "You know how. With another woman." David looked at her with an enigmatic expression. "Why do you ask that?" "Because you're different. You don't show interest in me anymore. You go out alone. You're always distant. And that automatically means I'm seeing someone else." "I don't know. I'm confused." David approached her and touched her face gently. "Jennifer, I'm not cheating on you. At least not in the way you're thinking." "What do you mean?" "I'm being faithful to our relationship, but I'm also being true to myself for the first time in a long while." "I don't understand." "I spent 15 years trying to be the perfect husband for you, doing everything I thought would make you happy. And you know what I discovered?" "What?" "That I forgot who I was in the process. That I became a version of myself that I thought you wanted, but that might never have been real." Jennifer looked frightened. "But I like you just the way you are." "You do? Are you sure?" "Of course I am." "Jennifer, when was the last time you spontaneously told me you loved me? Not as a response when I say it first, but of your own accord." Jennifer stayed silent. "When was the last time you planned something special for the two of us? When was the last time you surprised me with something? When was the last time you showed that you actually miss me when I'm not here?" "David, you don't remember, do you? And you know why? Because you got used to me, like you get used to a piece of furniture. It's always there, always available, always the same." David saw tears beginning to form in Jennifer's eyes. "That's not true," she whispered. "Isn't it? Then prove it." "How?" "Show me that you really care about me. Not about the security I provide, not about the comfortable life we have, but about me, David, as a person." Jennifer began to cry. "I do care." "Then show me, but not desperately because you're afraid of losing me. Show me because you truly feel it." David hugged her as she cried, but there was a coldness in his embrace that she had never felt before. That night, Jennifer tried again to get close to him intimately, but David once again kept his distance. "Why don't you want to be with me anymore?" she asked, hurt. "It's not that I don't want to. It's that I need to feel that it's real." "How is it not real?" "Jennifer, you're trying to be affectionate with me now because you realized you're losing me, not because you actually desire me. That's not true." "Isn't it? Then tell me, what did you find attractive about me today? What did I do or say that sparked your interest? Or are you being affectionate because you're afraid?" Jennifer didn't know how to answer. "That's what I thought," David said, turning on his side in bed. During the following weeks, the dynamic at home changed completely. Jennifer was constantly trying to please David, while he remained polite but emotionally distant. She cooked his favorite meals, bought the beers he liked, even suggested watching the action movies she had always rejected before. But David received everything with a cold cordiality that left Jennifer increasingly desperate. "David, tell me what you want me to do," she begged one night. "I don't want you to do anything, Jennifer." "What do you mean?" "I want you to be authentic, that you do things because you feel like it, not because you're trying to win me back." "But I do feel like it." "Do you? Or are you afraid?" David looked her in the eyes. "Jennifer, you know me well enough to know that I'm not a vengeful or cruel person. If I wanted to end our marriage, I would simply talk to you about it." "So you want to end it?" "I want to understand if there's still anything real between us, if there's real love, or if we're just two people used to each other." "There is love. On my part, there is." "Is there really? Or is there fear of losing stability?" Jennifer fell silent, and David knew he had hit the core of the issue. "Jennifer, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think carefully before answering." "Okay." "If I were a man with no money, no financial stability, no means to give you the comfortable life you have, would you still love me?" "David, what kind of question is that?" "It's an honest question. If I were, I don't know, a waiter earning minimum wage, would you still have married me? Would you still be with me today?" Jennifer took a long time to respond, and David knew her hesitation was already an answer. I fell in love with you, David, for the person you are. For the person I am, or for the life I could offer you? For both. Honesty, Jennifer. That's all I want." Jennifer began to cry again. "David, why are you doing this? Why are you destroying our marriage?" "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just removing the masks." "What masks?" "The masks we've both worn for years. You pretend to be a passionate wife, and I pretend not to notice that you're pretending." David saw Jennifer's face pale. "What do you mean?" "Jennifer, do you think I don't notice when you're genuinely happy and when you're just acting? Do you think I don't see when you show real affection and when you're just playing a role? David, I know when you're being authentic and when you're pretending, and lately almost everything is pretend." Jennifer remained silent for a long time. "So you know," she finally said. "Know what?" That you don't love me anymore?" Jennifer closed her eyes and nodded, crying. "How long?" "I don't know. It was gradual. I started feeling suffocated, bored, trapped. But you're so good to me, David. You treat me so well. But it's not enough. It's not that it's not enough. It's that I've changed. I've grown. I've become a different person from who I was when we got married." David nodded. "And who are you now?" "I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know who I am outside this marriage. I got married so young, I never had the chance to find out." "And you want to find out?" Jennifer looked at him with eyes red from crying. "I don't know if I want to throw away 15 years of history. Even if those 15 years have become a lie. Not everything is a lie, David. I care for you. Very much. You're important to me. But you don't love me as a wife, loves a husband." "No," she whispered. "Not anymore." David felt a deep pain, but also a strange relief. Finally, the truth had been spoken. "Thank you for your honesty," he said. "What will happen now?" "I don't know. We need to think about what's best for both of us." "Are you going to leave me?" "Jennifer, leaving implies you want to stay, do you?" I don't want to lose you from my life, but I also can't keep pretending to be a passionate wife. And I can't keep pretending not to notice you're pretending." They remained silent for a few minutes. "David," Jennifer finally said. Can you forgive me for having lied for so long?" David thought about the question. "I can forgive you for lying, but I can't forgive the years I lost believing in a lie." "And now?" Now we talk like two adults about how to end this in the best way possible." In the following weeks, David and Jennifer began talking openly about separation. Surprisingly, without the pressure of maintaining the facade of a perfect marriage, they were able to have more honest conversations than they'd had in years. Jennifer admitted she had married too young and never had the chance to discover who she really was. David admitted he had lost himself in the role of perfect husband and forgotten his own needs. "You know," Jennifer said during one of those conversations, "you're much more interesting now." "How so?" "You're more real, more authentic, less desperate to please me." David laughed bitterly. "Ironic, isn't it? Now that I'm no longer trying to win you over, you find me more attractive. It really is ironic. If you had been like this from the beginning, If I had been like this from the beginning, you might never have been interested in me. You needed someone who adored you unconditionally back then, and now I need someone who challenges me. And I need someone who sees me for who I really am, not as a provider of security." They decided to separate amicably. David helped Jennifer find a small but beautiful apartment and get financially settled until she could find a job. "Why are you being so generous with me?" she asked on the day she left. "Because I truly loved you for 15 years. Even if you didn't feel the same way, it was real to me. And people we love deserve to be treated with dignity, even when things end." Jennifer started to cry. "David, you don't need to say anything. I know." A year later, David was in his new apartment, smaller but cozier, when he received a call from Jennifer. "David, how are you?" "Good. And you?" "Good too. I wanted to tell you that I got a job at a marketing company. I'm really enjoying it." "That's great, Jennifer. I'm happy for you. And you? Are you seeing anyone?" David smiled. "I'm seeing someone. It's still early to know if it will turn into anything." "Is she nice?" "Very. She sees me exactly as I am and likes what she sees." "That must be an amazing feeling." "It is. And you? How's your new life?" "Different. Sometimes scary, but real. For the first time in a long time, I feel real." "I'm glad to hear that." "David?" "Thank you." "For what?" "For forcing me to be honest. For not accepting the lie forever. For setting me free, even though I didn't know I needed to be freed." David felt his eyes well up. "Thank you for having the courage to tell the truth, even knowing it would hurt. We hurt each other more by pretending than by speaking the truth, didn't we? Much more." After they hung up, David stayed on the balcony of his apartment, watching the city. He thought about the 15 years of marriage, the pain of discovery, the anger he had felt, the revenge plan he had crafted. But now he realized that the best revenge had been freeing himself and Jennifer from the prison they had built together, a prison made of lies, unmet expectations, and fear of facing the truth. David picked up his phone and sent a message to the woman he was seeing. "Hi, Rachel. How about dinner tonight? I want to tell you a story." When Rachel said yes, David smiled. A real, honest story, without masks or pretense. Exactly what he had learned to value. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. Do you think David did the right thing by confronting Jennifer that way? Or should he have been more direct from the beginning? Leave your honest opinion in the comments. Thanks for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and most importantly subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories like this one.